Aloha, namaste. This is Radha Home, and I'm here with our new moon forecast for this coming Sunday, June 17th at 6:36 p.m. here in Hawaii. It's 9:36 Pacific time, so can go into the 18th and in later time zones. Our moon and sun are coming together in sidereal Gemini, and it's happening in a star called Mrigasira. Mrigasira is bridging Taurus, where we have this grounded, earthy energy where we're learning our family values and we're dealing with the material realm, into Gemini, where this new moon is taking place. And this is where we're starting to form our own identity. So we were raised in a certain culture with certain values, and we're taught this is the way things are. And then our mind starts to wander and say, what else is possible? Maybe this isn't the only way to do things. Maybe my family, isn't doing it right. And we start to separate ourselves from the collective unit from which we came and move into the world. And the mind is what takes us there. The mind thinks of new places to go or new things to do, and our body may or may not follow. In Gemini, we move into a realm where we can become a little bit like a deer who's jumping through the woods looking for this thing or that thing. There's a skittish quality to the deer. They see something else and then run the other way. So this is where we have to be careful, because new ideas might come into our world or into our realm of possibility, and we follow that path, and then maybe something else comes in and we run the other direction, and we can end up in this sort of quagmire of constantly going somewhere else and not ever going deep into any one thing. In Gemini, we have a tendency to really focus on the facts and the details. There's a funny, flexible quality, an amicable quality, but we tend to just let this stream of consciousness of different data pass through us, and we don't usually land on an idea or belief or form an opinion. This is where we can get into trouble as well. It's right across from Sagittarius, Gemini. So we are coming across from the place where we might have deep-seated beliefs that really carry us and really inform what information we're willing to take in. So the flexibility and openness of Gemini really allows us to receive everything as it is with an objective mind. But if we don't ever form an opinion, or we don't ever take a stance on anything, then we can't really go anywhere else. I used to have a teacher in college when I was studying writing and poetry, and she would say, if you're in Paris, you can hop a plane to New York, but if you're nowhere, then you can't go anywhere. And this is sort of the Gemini problem. So it's a really good time to evaluate how jumpy you are, how much you allow yourself to constantly fall into more questions, which is important to question things. But if you keep it on the surface, or do you allow yourself to go really deep with one thing? In our new culture with the internet and information just rapidly streaming around, it can be particularly difficult, this Gemini energy, because there's a constant flow of information to access. You don't have to go to the library. You don't have to go to a bookstore. You can just, at the tip of your fingers, have a new set of information, and it can completely conflict with your old set of information. So we want to also not confuse facts or data with truth. Truth is something much higher than facts and figures. Truth is something that can last no matter what the time and space that we're in. So it doesn't have this temporal quality. This was true in 1956, but is it still true today? And in our culture, this is one of the biggest issues I see, is people really fixating on what is right, what is the right thing to do, or this is the issue, this is the issue, but it's like the limited viewpoint of only what they've seen in their world that they're coming from. So you need to be able to go out into the world and meet people with different views than you, and allow your mind to be flexible enough to take in that information and not just immediately discount it as not true because of what you've already been taught. So there's confirmation bias on the Sagittarius side, which is across from Gemini, where we have these deep-seated beliefs, and we don't even know where they're coming from usually, but everything has to fold into that. And then we have, we won't even accept information if it doesn't fit those beliefs. And then we have the Gemini side of things, where we're kind of letting all this information come through, but we're using our discernment, our buddhi, our intellect to determine what is true and what is false. But even in that realm, even when we're not working with, maybe lineage old beliefs, we're still only seeing things from how much we have of the picture. We only know so much, wherever we're getting our data from, that's a limited perspective in and of itself. So we need to open our mind and expand ourselves to the possibility that there's more than what we see in front of us, that there's more going on behind any scenes, and that there's perspectives that we have no access to at this point. And the only way to get access to that is to continue to communicate with other people and to really engage with the world around us, but also to tune into that part of us that is connected to source, that is connected to all that's ever been, and that knows truth on a deeper level and can't just be swayed by facts and information, but has a deep knowing of what is true and what is not, because truly anything can be proved right or wrong, as we're learning in our current world. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can look at the chart together, although I'm sure my background is more beautiful. So here's the moon and sun together, very early degrees Gemini. And Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is in Taurus. So this is Mrigashira, bridges these two signs. It's the star that bridges them. And Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. So right now he's in Taurus's realm. He's in that earthy realm, that realm that's related to pleasure seeking. So while we might be searching for something more, we also might be very carried and directed by what feels good, by our pleasure sense, by our desire nature, and by wanting to accrue things and feel comfortable and have material possessions. So that can be another way in which our perspective gets skewed. What feels good to me? What's going to be best for me? What's going to get me the nice house or the nice car or the comfortable life? And sometimes we can miss what's going on for other people. So this is an important thing to sort of reflect upon on our journey and our search. And Mrigashira is literally called the searching star. It's a deer's face. And we see that quality of a deer who's, walking through the woods and then, pops out onto a busy street with cars and gets scared and goes back another direction and then sees something else and kind of flits here and there. There's this kind of skittish quality, particularly in the Gemini side of this. As we get out into the big unknown, as we leave our family, as we leave our source of values, we start to face all these unknowns, and it's scary. And we can, retreat back to what we know very quickly before we've even gone far enough to find out anything new. Gemini in itself is a star that has to do a lot, or excuse me, a sign that has to do a lot with like these dualities. In Sanskrit, it's Mithuna, which is sex, and it's a man and a woman making love. And in the story that's related mostly to the star after Mrigashira, Ardra, there's this Rudra, who's the howler. He's the fierce form of Shiva. And when Brahma has created him, he tells him to go out and propagate. And when he does, he propagates sort of in this really tumultuous way. And he turns himself into 11 Rudras and 11 Rudranis. And they go out and they create, volcanic flows and poison and earthquakes and fires and, stinging insects and all this chaos. And so Brahma's like, okay, enough. Come back together. And so he brings them back together into one. And they have to meditate. And they go and meditate, this one Rudra and one Rudrani, and they become Parvati. And Shiva, which is the one that is higher, is Parvati, and Shiva is the auspicious one. And so if we can train our mind just by the simple practice of really sitting with ourselves, really allowing our higher intellect to come through, not just our discernment based on what we already know and what we know about that person or that party or that, entity, but if we can really sit with our deeper self, which really only happens in a place of quiet, right? Really only happens in a place of like allowing all the other noise to go away, then we can allow our mind to find a place of peace where we're not so easily swayed and we're not so skittish and we can go deeper with something. and we can really search for truth. So this is an important theme we're going through right now, particularly because Jupiter has just moved out of degrees with Rahu here in Aries. When they were joined, we might have had almost an obsession to find truth, an obsession over our beliefs and ideals. And because it's Aries, it's like, I'm right, I'm right, you're wrong. Like there's no room for me to be right and you to be right. There's this really, strong quality of black and white and logic orientedness. Not sure that orientedness is a word, but we'll go with it. Now that Rahu and Jupiter are kind of starting to move away, there's going to be a little less delusion and this sort of grandioseness where we exaggerate how right we are, or we exaggerate our truth and our beliefs, and we are able to see a little bit more clearly. Even if we still have that Aries quality of like going for whatever we believe, we can shift gears if necessary when we run into a place where maybe we were wrong, or maybe we weren't entirely wrong, but maybe we could have done something a little differently. And if we shifted ourselves just a little to the side, the whole perspective and potential can really open up. So this is a time where a lot of awakening is coming up. But at the same time, and of course, this Saturn is staring right at this Jupiter. We have a 3-house one-way drishti, one-way gaze from Saturn onto Jupiter, really bringing this practical quality to the table. It's like we're seeing what's truly something to be afraid of, be it death, be it old age, be it poverty, be it the systems that we've been working under and how they're, working for some, but not all. And we're able to then imagine something better because it's in Aquarius. Saturn's in his own sign of Aquarius, where we can really picture the future that we want and bring it into being. But of course, Saturn just began his retrograde cycle on the same day as the new moon is beginning, so on the 17th. And this is a 4.5-month cycle. People put a lot around Mercury retrograde, and it's, oh no, my computer's not working. Oh no, my phone's not working. My communication's bad. And Mercury is to blame for everything. But Saturn is retrograde for a much longer period of time, and guaranteed pulls a lot more intensity into your life when he rolls backwards, because the things that you've committed your time to, the things you've humbled yourself in honor of, the things that you've chosen to feel the pressure and feel the fear to do are being reviewed. And maybe they were wrong, maybe you committed to the wrong thing. And this is when we really get into the houses. So I do these reports for all 12 rising signs. I do them for the major planet transits like Saturn and Jupiter and the nodes, and I do them for the new and full moons to show what cycle's being set off for you in this new moon, what's being highlighted, the opposite quality that needs to be integrated in the full moon, and what these major transits are bringing up for you. Because for everybody, this is a different house. For Leo people, and I mean Leo rising, not sun, this is their 7th house. So it has to do with relationships. What have you committed to? And was it the right choice? For a Taurus person, this is going to be their 10th house and have to do with the career. For a Scorpio, it's their 4th house and has to do with the home. So for each person, it's really a different area of life. And that's why I do these reports. And so there's a link you can follow and you can check out the reports. I do sort of a general one for everybody. Saturn retrograde, this is what it means. And then I break it down for all 12 signs. And I do the same with the new moon and full moon. So if you're interested, you can check that out. But anyway, back to the story about what Saturn is doing with our inflated beliefs and our exaggerated beliefs is he's kind of pulling us down to earth and being like, this is what's really going on, particularly in the star he's in, Satabishak. This is the 100 healers, and it's also the 100 stars or the thousands of stars in the night sky, where we see what's going on beneath the surface. We see what happens in the dark, behind closed doors, the corruption perhaps from politicians or from, moneyed interest, the dark side of things that are happening in the underbelly of society. Perhaps our own shadows, the things that we're not willing to reflect on most days of the week. And we can use that information and integrate it into our beliefs so that our actions moving forward are more aligned with truth. And once we act differently, we put ourselves in a new realm, and that new realm allows us to take in different information and see things in a different way and use that Gemini quality for this flexibility. And we're on, kind of the tail end of Mars being debilitated. He's the ruler of Aries in Cancer. It's going to be here for a couple more weeks till the end of June. That Mars is going to be here. Mars is going to be here. But this is really a time when we have trouble. We have some apathy. We have trouble having courage and discipline and showing up for the things we need to show up for in life. Our actions can be a little bit dulled, and we tend to have a lot of feelings like of maybe unfairness, or we would rather connect than do what we need to do to strengthen ourselves. And we resent people because we think that somehow they're keeping us from what we deserve or need to do. And this is particularly true since Venus has been joined Mars. Venus really brings up this issue of feeling like I give, and I don't get in return. So it can get very weepy. This Venus-Mars conjunction in Cancer is a very weepy one, and a very like victim, woe is me, I do so much and no one else does anything. And of course, everyone's having this experience. So we're all thinking, how much we do and how much our efforts are in vain, when in truth, maybe our efforts are not actually as great as we think they are. Maybe they're not focused. Maybe they're kind of all over the place. Maybe they're erratic. One of the things about discipline is it requires showing up in the same way constantly and consistently. So, if you do yoga once every 6 months, you're not really going to see too many benefits, right? But if you do it daily, then the effects will come over time, and it'll take time to actually see those effects. But anyone who's ever done anything consistently for a long period of time knows that it's true. You do have the effects. All the work we're doing equals something. It just might not be the day we want it to be, but sometime in the future, you can look back on your past and say, wow, look at all the things I've actually accomplished. Look at all the things I've done. And if we don't like what we've seen, then we can say, maybe I wasn't showing up the way that I thought I should, or that I thought I was. And I can shift my actions to create different karma for myself. So this is a really valuable lesson we're learning right now, but it is one that's hard won. It doesn't feel good for sure. And I think when Mars moves into Leo, we'll all be breathing a sigh of relief. Venus will also move into Leo and then retrograde back. So we're going to have a bit of that feeling of, I give and give and give and don't get in return throughout the summer. But just allowing ourselves to step into a little more discipline and power will feel good in a couple weeks by our, around our full moon time. So I'm going to stop there because that's a lot. Again, if you want to find out what this new moon cycle is setting off for you, particularly in your chart, you can go to the link that I have down below for my member site and check that out. There's a free trial for 1 week. And also I have Saturn for all of the 12 rising signs. And I say what Saturn in Aquarius means for you, and then what's retrograde means for you, what's happening when he's moving backwards for that 4.5 month period, and how you're reviewing your life and your commitments. So hope to see you soon and have a blessed new moon. Namaste.